right, welcome to episode 3 of the ADH Dads. I am CJ, and this is JJ, your host, and we're here to talk about intentions at the start of the new year this year. Today is New Year's Day. Happy New Year, JJ. How's your first day of the 2023 turning out for you?
Yeah, Happy New Year, man. We are getting dumped on for snow here in Salt Lake City. And Kiddo and I took advantage of that and went outside and made some snowmen. And he's really into Mario Brothers right now, so he wanted to make snow Koopas. And I'm going to tell you, that's no easy feat. So here we were making stuff, and he's having things fall apart in his hands. And the snow is, it's packing together, but it's also falling apart. And he's packing it together, and then it falls apart, and he's just a mess, crying about it and stuff. So I was like, how do you comfort a kid who's crying over snow not sticking together? That's a tough one. So we had some good times, and then he went with his mom, and then I got a little bit of time to myself here. Got to watch some football, as I see you are in the spirit of your team, and your team had a victory.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
Chargers.
I don't have a team that I'm really aligned with, but I grew up with the Minnesota Vikings, and they're having one heck of a year, and they were down by quite a bit at halftime, and that's kind of been their thing recently, where they're down and then they come back and make a huge run of it and win. Not this time. No, not this time.
Well, I'm in good spirits because my blue won, so bolt up.
Well,
it's Battle of
good,
LA
man.
today, so it was a good game. But man. So, have you thought about New Year's resolutions at all, or intentions, or any goals that you'd like to set forth? And also, apologies to my dog here; she's throwing her bone around in the background. If you can hear that.
That's the life we live, man. There's always something going on, something distracting us. Honestly, Colton, we're going to talk about intention today. And one of the things that I think that I would benefit from, my son would benefit from, is some greater focus on intentionality in our everyday. I think a New Year's resolution is to create a realistic structure and routine and schedule for us in the house. And, it's going to be painful at first, because I think my son thrives on the opportunity to just make a choice and then stick with that. But at the same time, I think the research shows, for not just kids with ADHD, but kids in general, really do succeed much more when they have structure. In fact, their executive function, ADHD, there's executive function, a lack of it in development. And then, even with kids who are just regular, normal, kiddos, they also have executive functioning development that needs to be worked on. So, structure is something that I think is of great importance. And I'm going to try and push that a little bit more this year. And then I wouldn't mind, getting rid of some of the extra baggage that I don't need to bring on the plane with me. Don't need to get charged extra for that. So I'd like to get rid of the extra junk in the trunk, I guess. Sorry, my dogs are playing now in the background. How about yourself?
That's kind of what I wanted to talk to you today is the structure of it all, and kind of maybe some methods that I've implemented in. And I think for New Year's resolutions, mine is definitely to get back to a good system with that. It's been routine longevity seems to be the goal that I'm striving for here. I'm like great with the first mile stretch here. I seem to burn out quick. So my whole thing is kind of trying to have the patience and grace with myself to keep a little bit of longevity in my growth, because I think I started off last year really good, and as life happens to throw curveballs at us, some of my health and fitness kind of took a back burner to the responsibilities of life. And not that that's an excuse, and it's definitely not, and that's why a lot of my focus is geared towards health and fitness this year, moving into the new year. Like 99% of the Planet Fitness members this month, it'll drop off next month. My goal is to stay well into December of this year and in 2028 and so forth. But yeah, man, some of the structure and that I wanted to talk about is maybe some core values and kind of getting out of the autopilot of life, and by kind of creating some family core values and some individual core values, and to kind of help us when those curveballs do come at us and knock us off of our path. So yeah, man. I wanted to talk about how we've got our family mantra here on our wall. It's something that we created last year. We did a family photo session and had a photographer come out and take photos of the kids and my wife here, and we put that up on our wall, a little collage of all of our favorites, and we kind of went through a list of words and kind of talked about it with the kids and what was important to us and what we wanted our family to look like. And we created a family mantra that we put in the middle of our photo collage. And I try to every day. It doesn't always work out, but I try to after breakfast with the kids as we're going out for school. We just take a moment to pause and reflect, and we all stand in front of the pictures and just kind of take a look at the family, and we read off the mantra together. And the kids are real, they have their favorite parts that they like to say out loud. So we all take turns kind of reading line by line and kind of just, getting in touch with that and those core values and what's important to us. So I'm kind of interested in, kind of hearing, maybe where you've gone with that and your journey and what core values looks like to you and what intention means to you.
Yeah, man, it's an interesting time, the holidays and the experience of, family and getting together and expressing love or maybe revisiting traumas and stuff to kind of remind you of where you are at and what you have intention behind in your life. And one of the things that I experienced just this last week was my parents visiting, and it was a reminder of what I really hold dearly in my core values. And the biggest one is presence and quality time with my kiddo. And being able to create that on a daily basis is actually a great challenge. And one way that's never more clear is when he gets these presents, and he got for the first time, like his own Nintendo system essentially. And he wants to play that every day. So what did we do? We got in front of the TV, turned on the Nintendo, and stared at the TV. And then occasionally he laid his head down on me and he said, "Oh, I love you, Dad." And I'm like, well, he's saying that staring at Mario on the TV. So my ability to I don't know why the dogs decided that right now is the time to run and chase each other, but this is what you're hearing in my background. So I think the thing is for me is that of the most important of my core values is quality time and presence. And when my kiddo is thinking about, I'm saying, hey, let's do A and have time together, and he's thinking B, it's sometimes a challenge and even a power struggle at times to come together and see how we can create this moment together of quality time. And granted, you can't do that every hour of the day, but because that is where I really feel like I needed it from my parents and didn't necessarily receive that a lot of the times, I think that's one of the reasons why my core value of presence is that much more important to me. I want to be there for my son. I want to create this space of honesty and trust and love and just being able to cultivate an atmosphere of being open with each other and being safe and seen and heard. And that's a lot more difficult when you're in your phone and your kiddo's wanting your attention, or you just always have something else to do. And we always have something else to do. Again, we're talking about intention. It's really easy to be intending to do this and intending to do that, and to the point where you've intended everything else but your relationship with your loved ones. So I think the thing for me is that the core value of presence and quality time is of utmost importance. And structure and kind of sticking to a habit and a routine, I think will ultimately help us succeed in that. Even though it is a point of contention right now, where I say, "All right, buddy, let's do this." Let's, even when it comes to him taking his plate to the sink after dinner, he'll go, "Oh," like it's the end of the world when it's like a 5-second thing. Yeah, we're working on trying to create this structure to the point where it's like, I don't even have to ask him. And it's really just a matter of, hey, we're operating the house so we can move on to the things where we can focus on each other. And then, of course, obviously, we'll have those spur of the moment fun times too, because we had tons of snow dump on us, and here we are making snowmen and stuff today. So you got to have that flexibility in there along with that routine.
Oh, yeah, man. I know all about those moans and groans and the resistance of cleaning. Just the other day, I asked our oldest to clean up her mess before she came down to eat her snack. And she said, "Oh, you're the worst parents. You're trying to starve me to death." It's so crucial in a kid's mind, right? But yeah, I love hearing presence from you, man. That's something that I really try to focus on too, and I maybe felt there was a little bit of a lack of in my own upbringing and childhood. So presence in, like you're saying, man, God, it is difficult, right? When you've got to move from point A to point B, and kiddo wants to go through LMNOP on you, before you get there. And life takes a lot of attention, and so does raising a kid. So how do you be intentional about that energy and where you're putting it, and know when's the right time to pull back, and when's the right time to put that intention back into yourself, for us and in our family here. Our family mantra is we love and respect ourselves and others. We are committed and live with integrity. We are patient and forgiving with ourselves and others. And every day we grow. I think that and those are kind of some big words in there too, right? For a 5 and a 7-year-old, integrity and commitment, and all of this stuff. But through this process, we get to talk about what integrity means, and what that looks like, and how to exemplify that in social situations at school, and conflicts between sister, here at home, and that piece of for ourselves and others, the forgiveness and patience and love and respect. You have to love and respect, other people, but also yourself, and that patience and forgiveness aspect also, needs to be extended to ourselves sometimes, and not others. And that's the kind of environment that I definitely want to create here is a safe space to fail and forgive and be patient with one another, because life is a grand learning process, right? And it's full of a lot of tripping and failing. So yeah, and I think implementing systems like the wall that we have, and the routine of saying it in the morning, really kind of helps us filter through the adversities of life, and all the curveballs that come our way. Whenever something isn't aligning with that, whenever sisters are fighting, we can sit there and we can say, let's pause. Does this align with our family mantra? Are you treating each other with love and respect? And are you respecting each other's space and forgiving each other when you say sorry, and moving on? And, it leaves a good platform for us. And I think that's important for us as men, as fathers, as individuals, as human beings, right? So many of us, myself included, we just continue on autopilot, on standard operating procedure, just, in that gear, and we respond, or we react, rather than respond. And, I think I did that a lot of my life, where I didn't stop to think about who I was and what I wanted to say and what I was trying to convey. And instead, I just reacted. I would just let the emotions bleed out, and usually that would take the form of anger or yelling or frustration, or impatience. So those are all important things to myself. And not only do we have a family mantra, that we operate in within our family unit, but I also have a individual mantra that's just for myself. For I am grateful for my family and generous with my humor. I live with honesty, patience, and I forgive all. That's mine. Forgiveness, honesty, patience, generosity, humor, gratuity, and family. Those are my core values. So in my meditations, and when I wake up in the morning, or when I'm working out, or when I'm going on my walks, or when I'm just trying to catch a moment of silence, trying to breathe and collect myself, or prepping for the chaos that's going to ensue with whatever, I can pause and I can say that in my head, and that's something that I can ground myself to over and over and over again. And again, that helps me filter through, is this how I want to talk to the kids? Is this how I want to operate within my marriage and with my wife? And without that statement, without those core values, without knowing who I am, who I want to be, then there's nothing to ground me, and I explode. I react. I don't have the moment of pause, and I'm confused as to who I am and who I want to be in that moment, right? Because when you get stuff thrown at you're overwhelmed. It's hard to remember all the shit, right? Here we are talking about it in a moment of quiet reflection, but when you're getting hit in the face and the fans spraying all of that doo-doo on you, it's hard to keep your cool. It's hard to remember who you want to be. We often just want to just explode with our thing, our feeling, our want, our need, or whatever word we put to it, right? But that's why I feel it's so important for each of us to go through a core values exercise to decide, who we want to be.
So let me ask you this, Colton. When it comes to creating core values, you mentioned this core values exercise. What would you recommend to somebody who's listening to this do to take a step toward, learning their core values and being able to, create a list of those and then, essentially at some point create a statement of who they are, what their core values are, and how they implement those every day?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, JJ. And, I think a first step for a lot of men should be getting in touch with who you are right now. Right. And maybe that involves creating a list, or some sort of journal entry or some quiet reflection of some time where you just really kind of nail out who you've been up until this point of this exercise, how you've operated. And maybe those don't all look like positive adjectives, right? Maybe they're not all positive descriptors of who we are. I think, especially for people that aren't maybe used to this exercise, a lot of maybe stuff comes up, and how you view yourself. And I think that's important to get in touch with that, first, before deciding who you want to be and how you want to operate. Get in touch with who this person is now, and maybe make a list of things that, who you believe you are, and then go from there. What are the positive aspects about that? What would you pull from that list of words, and what can you tether to now of who you are and what you love about yourself? And then, just start making a list of the things that are important to you, most important to you, whether it be family or work. No one's here to judge this exercise. This is an exercise for you, So if the money or the career is important to you, or, being a leader or being successful, be honest with yourself and write down those words and really tick away at it, and there's some exercises that you can Google out there too, some lists of some really great words and values that you can kind of go through and look at, eliminate, and kind of tick off until you find 5 or 6 that really resonate with you. And once I had those 5 or 6, I wanted to put it into a sentence or two that could really stick with me and become a mantra, a repetitive thing in my brain, right? Because we operate in our lives for so long in this rhythm, right? I didn't start thinking about this stuff until well into my 30s. So it's not like you just read this or you hear this on a podcast or you hear somebody say like, this is what you need to do to be better. And you go, wow, that's so easy. And then the next day you're just there, so many of us take for granted the work that goes behind change and growth, and you really have to put the effort in. And what does the effort look like? Well, it looks like, writing this list, getting your sentences down, finding the mantra, something again that you can bring about every single day. You've got, 30 years, 40 years of programming of this negative thought process running through your train like a freight train on, with no brakes. And it just powers through. You don't even think about it. You're not even aware of it and how it affects your body and your heart and your mind. You just do it. You got to start getting in touch with that. That's the first step is how are you looking at yourself? How are you talking to yourself? What's the story that's going on in between your ears about who you are up until this point and who you want to be? Because that's powerful, man. Those words have an effect. And if you're telling yourself, I'm no good, I can't do it, I'll never get there, then you won't. You have to find a way to turn it around. So what are the values that are core to you in your bones? What's going to drive you when it all falls apart, when you slip, when you don't feel like getting up? What are you going to say to yourself that reminds you of what's important in your heart and not what of POS you are or what your fails are, but what your failures are, but rather how you want to get up and keep moving. I just rambled for a long time there, man. I'm sorry.
No, this is good. I'm going to ask you more questions, so you got to be ready for them, right? What does decades of life and experience, talking to you like like conscience, the devil on the shoulder. What does that look like when, that voice is telling you that's not who you are? You can write these core values down. You can say you are this, but this is based on my research into the past. This is what you are. And, and it's just your voice, trying to manipulate you as to who you always intend to be. What do you do to push past that?
Man, for me, I think I spent a lot of time in my head about who I was and how that was out of my control. And I with my dad, I guess I'm talking about here in our relationship, and I always felt that my anger came from him, and I wish that I had a more structured way of dealing with it. I wish that we could talk. A lot of communication that happened between my own father and I just didn't go well, and ended with a lot of yelling or ruined Thanksgivings or storming out of the house, kind of scenarios. It took me a while to connect with that in my 20s and in my previous marriage. I operated with the mentality of, well, this is just how I was raised. This is my trauma. This is the generational gift that my family has given to me, right? I mean, when I knew my grandfather as a gentleman, never raised his voice, but when I asked my dad about his childhood, he would say, my grandpa was a dick. He was a jerk and he yelled a lot, and I that's what I remember, and so it seemed like it was something in our blood, and I told myself that it was a blood thing for a long time, and I've come to the realization now that it's not our fault, the things that happen to us and the people that we become. But I think that it is our responsibility to search out the tools, to course correct that, to arm ourselves with the best tools in the toolbox to confront this and to live with it, to cope with it, to make it a friend instead of something that we run from, ignore, or try to pretend doesn't exist. We have to get comfortable with it and understand it and be comfortable with asking the right questions surrounding it. So for me, when it really started to kind of turn around in my life and not feel so overwhelming is when I started saying, I am an angry person and that's okay, but I'm going to find ways to deal with it. I'm going to find ways to express it in a different way. So, are we asking ourselves the right questions, which can be scary.
So, as you know, I'm a co-parent. I run this house by myself, which really isn't what I intend for. I would like for my son to be involved in the running of this household as well. Granted, he's 6 years old, so that probably would look like, let's go to the grocery store. We need groceries and Oreos and, juice and soda and all the bad stuff. That's what we need for groceries, Dad. So, obviously we have to make some good decisions, but what does it, I'm making a switch here, but what does it look like to have your household, your partner, your wife, hold you accountable to those values? How does she help you succeed?
That's a good question, JJ. And I think that there's two opposite answers to this, because there's, like I said, going back, there's my core values, right? That I want to operate as an individual, as a man, as my own human being. And then we have our family ones, that my wife and I have sat down with and thought about and prepared together. So, when we come in scenarios within our family that maybe are difficult to deal with, or when maybe one of us is, kind of losing it with the kids or getting a little caught up in the emotions of it all, I think that family mantra is right there to help us ground it in a gentle way. It's a contract or our covenant that we've both entered into, agreeing that these are the core things. This is the foundation that the whole thing is built on, right? So if windows start breaking and the roof needs repaired and the walls start coming down, we know that the structure and the foundation is good, and that repairs can happen, right? That's life, and sometimes things need to be fixed up. But we've had that talk, and we've sat down and we've created this list and the saying, this mantra that we've agreed we're not going to take offense to. That this is the thing that grounds us. So we've had situations where I've maybe, doing the finger wag thing, the pointing and the, you don't do this, or, because I said so, or, how could you, or why would you, think to do that kind of attitude. My wife can gently touch me on the back and say a line from our family mantra about patience and forgiveness with ourselves and others. Or when she sees that I'm beating myself up on the couch about maybe a way that I talked to the kids or didn't handle myself, or something that happened at work or whatever, she again reminds me of that forgiveness piece and with ourselves, and not only other people, but with ourselves. So, again, I think just going back to, that foundation of agreeing with it prior. So when it does come up, you're just not taking offense to it.
What does that do for the marriage? How does that help create a marriage of honesty and safety and love?
Because it's a together thing, Again, it's so many people, I think, operate in their relationships with a mindset of reciprocity, or maybe quid pro quo, of maybe I did this, so I'm expecting this, or, we're just operating to operate because life is going on, and we're not thinking about too much of it. But when you have a structure like this, or a system within your marriage, your family, or your relationship, it's a team building exercise, right? It's something that you've done together. It's something that you did in the past to create this. It's something that you're living with in the present now. And it's something that drives your goals for the future, right? And your mindset for what you want to accomplish, and how we're going to get there with the communication and the honesty. These are the values. So if someone, again, kind of maybe operates outside of that, there's still the system that you guys have created there to reel it back in and remind you of the love that is there, and the power of the system that you guys have thought about and were intentional in creating.
All right. And now that we, that's good, buddy. Now that we're also talking in the podcast space of ADH dads, tell me a little bit about the family mantra and how the kids find themselves excited, involved, and in the creation of this, and then how they respond to it, whether in good times where things are going well, or maybe when things aren't going so well.
Well, our oldest, who has the ADHD in our household, she's all over the place, doesn't want to do it half the time, can't remember the words, mumbles it, and, doesn't really care. So, but through repetition, I've seen some really beautiful moments. Some struggles that she's dealt with at school, or some social dynamics, or some things that, she's operated, again, outside of the standard of that family mantra. And as we're talking about it and, trying to get those, well, why did you do that? What's going through your head? What made you make that choice, or whatever? And, as a 7-year-old, typically with ADHD, will tell you, I don't know. Right. It's hard to pull that information out of a kid with ADHD. But, when, again, we've done this mantra every day, and it's such a repetitive part of our day life and process, we can pull little nuggets out of that, where, do you think that you operated within our family mantra? Do you think that you acted with integrity there? You did half of that homework, and you promised me that you were going to do the other half the next day in the car. And I understand that you wanted to watch your iPad in the car, but part of our family mantra is commitment. You committed that you were going to finish this. You told me that you were going to. That's important, right? That we finish the things that we start. So again, as these things come up in our day and in our struggles, and in our family, that little piece is there to help ground us and help a 7-year-old whose brain is bouncing around. And, my problem with dealing with the kids is I use too many words, man. I talk to them like I'm in a psych class doing a lecture, and I'm spitting philosophy out at them, and this little 7-year-old's like, huh? I don't know those words,
Oh,
so
man.
The less that we can use, the more connected that I feel to her in those moments. So that little piece, that little mantra is always just right there to help us connect and dull it down to what's important. Do we operate within that?
Yeah, buddy, that's a good reminder for me. I'll tell you that, my son said, I don't know 1,000 times in probably the last week. I'll tend to kind of talk to him to the point where he's probably just like exhausted hearing me, speak to him about something. Whereas when you do have something on the wall and something that you both have had an opportunity to weigh in on and at least contribute to, even if we're dealing with our kiddos who have ADHD, who just kind of look at it and go, bah, and then, want to move on. If they've had an opportunity to contribute to that, they have some value within them, applied to that. And I honestly, I've done my core values exercise, but I have not done a family mantra with my kiddo. Um, a quick, fun little story. His participation, it varies in these things. And one time I was asked for a magazine to ask my son, what he thought I did at work. And he said, you do a lot of chatting. I said, oh, okay. So you think I chat a lot? Granted, he had come to the office and, he had experienced, a different environment because of his presence. Everybody was a little bit more vocal and talking and stuff. But I said, do I do anything else? He said, I don't know. You just do a lot of chatting. And I'm a person who's an introvert who sits at a computer and, but most of the time I'm just doing, coding and stuff. So my level of chatting with work is very minimal, especially now that I work from home. So I just got a kick out of that. And what I'm trying to say with what you said, and I want to circle back around to the other kids in the house too, is that, the value in creating something that it's lasting. It's, a mainstay in the house. Maybe it's framed on the wall and stuff, something that the family can come back to. The value in that is similar to what, people experience through, a religious upbringing. Over time, you're doing these things. You're doing repetitive things at church, and you're told a certain gospel message and stuff to the point where it does really become something that you are memorizing essentially and practicing. And whether it's at church or something similar, like going to Taekwondo, which we're talking about setting our kiddo to. The repetitious nature of it over time, whether it's in the message delivered from, the adults or something, or it's, through the actual practice of physical, activity, that does sharpen us. And even a kiddo with ADHD, especially sometimes I want to say, will benefit from that ongoing intentional routine to create something within them that results in a skill set or a mindset or, values themselves. And, going back to the situation with the snow falling apart in his hands today, Cohen was just upset. And I told him, I said, I totally understand where you're coming from. It sometimes takes multiple opportunities and practice for you to start to understand how you can create something that holds together. And, with his patience level at that point, it might've been too late, but at least it's an opportunity to kind of work that process in there and create something of repetitive nature to result in success later on. So I applaud you, and I would love to hear more about maybe the ones who are younger and how they can contribute to the core values of the family and the mantra and how they look up to that through you and directly.
Yeah, thank you for that story too, and I think that there's really some great insight in there because this doesn't always work, right? And most days I'm met with a lot of eye rolls, and they don't want to do it, But there's a few nuggets in there where they're excited to do it, and they want to hop up in my arms and take turns, going back and forth, and those days are exciting. But I know that the boring days are still important to do too, even with the eye rolls and the shoulder shrugs and the nonchalantness about it, because again, it's just there. It's there to ground us, and the kids don't always understand. Again, we did this exercise when they were 6 and 4, maybe even 5 and 3, so they were pretty young when we first did this. And the every day we grow part of it, they thought meant they were going to get taller. Every day that we said that, they were going to go to sleep, and the next day they'd be just a little bit bigger. They get a little bit closer to being a grown up, right? So that every day we grow part of it took some patience with getting our 3-year-old at the time to understand, but now she understands that grow aspect of it through a year and a half, 2 years of repetition with this. And again, we talk about the word integrity maybe when we create this mantra for us, and it's in one, out the ear, and out the other. The kid forgets about it and they go on with their day. I'm never going to say that. I'm never going to use that word, so I'm not going to remember what it means, but again, with the repetition aspect of it, we chip away at it, and it's just something to think about. And maybe now at school where she hears that word or she's caught in a situation where that's challenged, she'll at least, have a little bit of wherewithal to think back about our mantra and what it's meant to her and what she's heard me talk about it, which, I think a lot of the aspect of this comes with a lot of patience and letting go. We're talking about intentions, not outcome here. Intention does not mean outcome. You have to, I think, let go a little bit of the outcome piece. The intention is what you're putting forth before the outcome, right? Like what we want to live up to and build up to. So I think that you have to have a little bit of grace and understanding and patience with, again, not only the other people that you're trying to get on board with this core values, but yourself, because there's going to be good days and bad days and days where you don't feel like you're living with integrity, or you don't feel like being committed, or you just don't want to grow, and that's okay, because we're humans and those days do come. And, you have to be able to forgive yourself and realize, like we were saying earlier, gee, I've been operating on 35 years of this prior behavior before I got to give myself a little bit of understanding and forgiveness that it's not going to just happen. That I'm going to have to work at it. I'm going to maybe have a few days, but the trick, I think, is to just not let it keep you down, to not let it spiral you into, see, I am the POS that I thought I was because I failed this one day, this one time, this one moment, or I I forgot to say my family mantra and I blew up, or whatever, or operated with outside of those values. But, you have to realize that forgiveness is a huge piece of this.
Yeah, I think that anytime that we have something that we hold ourselves accountable to, it's incredibly important to remind ourselves that we're going to slip up, we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And a lot of the time too, our children will also forgive us for those mistakes. I have a story that I'll share here in a little bit as well, but. One of the things that I wanted to bring up too, in addition to kind of what you've been talking about, is we discuss ADHD here and there, and that's kind of one of the focal points of our coming together on this this podcast too. I've learned that kiddos with ADHD have certain challenges that maybe other kiddos don't. But everybody responds well to this tactic that I learned through the process of kind of trying to figure out what I can do to best serve my son, as he has a different mindset towards some things because of his ADHD. And the big part you mentioned, reactivity and kind of working toward the different side of that coin, which is maybe proactivity. And one of the things that is of incredible value to a mantra with a family or your core values is that constant reminder, and being able to point to that and say, this is what you're exercising, or, maybe you even create an opportunity for success that then, you point back to the core values for. The big thing for my son is that I've seen him light up when I remind him of just the little wins that he's doing, or just little things, maybe even neutral things. So I give him praise sometimes in areas that a lot of parents will be like, well, that's just kind of strange to give praise for. Like maybe pointing at a cloud in the sky and saying it's shaped like a heart, and, saying, wow, you did that. You just pointed that out to me. There's a heart there. That is amazing. What does a heart mean to you? And kind of, give them the opportunity to see something special in who they are by creating those moments of success with them. And through the development of core values and being able to kind of look back at that, especially as a family mantra, and point to that, say, we experienced this today, and this is an example of what's important to this family. I think a child of ADHD will have so much more excitement and place so much more value on that, whether it's their own individual, view on it, or if it's their view for the family on it. I do believe that this is a huge thing for children with ADHD to find a way to build confidence in themselves. And I say that because when we focus on the reactive part of it, and that can come in a situation where, let's say they made a mistake and we focus on the mistake and stuff. I've seen it in my son where he suggests he's stupid and he suggests that nobody loves him and stuff. And that's just painful to have any kid, say that. My son will more quickly kind of go there sometimes because of his statement or his state and being in I guess, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but in his ADHD brain, he has a tendency to really latch on to those negative, responses to his behavior. And because it's so easy to point out like, oh, you're not focusing here, you're not focusing there, and saying you're not this, you're not that, or don't do this, don't do that. We really fill up their heads with, this is the type of kid I am. This is the type of person I am. Somebody who makes mistakes. We're focusing way too much on the reactive point, and we're building up their negative self-talk. But when we create those family mantras and we put them on the wall and we go, like you said, daily growth, right? When you can go back to that and say, here's how you grew today. This is exactly what you've done today to help yourself succeed in life, or to show the great person that you are now and who you continue to achieve or continue to grow into. Like, that's something that builds them up. And again, I have a kiddo who's very much in tune with his emotions, and whether it's tough or good, he latches onto that, and that can make or break the situation for him. So yeah, family values are very important. Thank you.
Listening to you talk here, I'm thinking to myself, how can we create this for our kids, right? Like, how can we give our ADHD kids the tools that I'm talking about here? How can we give them a personal mantra? Because I think that's really helpful, right? I'm sitting here and talking about it for the last 45 minutes about how helpful it's been in my life. Like, why can't we do this for our 7-year-olds, right? Why can't we have some generative questions and conversations with them about who they think that they are, and what do they think makes them special, and what do they think that their superpowers are, and how can we help them take those 2 or 3 words and turn it into an empowering statement, something that they can say when maybe they aren't operating in that, like we're talking about, when they step outside of it or lose feelings on their emotions, or get in trouble for school for something that they know that they shouldn't do, right? What's something that we can give them here, that they can tell themselves, I am this person, and this is who I want to be and how I want to operate, and this is what's important to me. Something that, again, when these situations arrive at school or in the principal's office or in the detention hall or with the next door neighbor's kids, we can come back and say, but you told me that you wanted to be this person, that you wanted to have this kind of relationship, So I think that that's a good place to start. And, I think I'm going to start doing that this week. I'm going to start asking some questions about, what are some words? How would you describe yourself? So, boom, light bulb, dawn strikes on marble head. Good job, JJ. Let's try an experiment here within our kids and our households.
Yeah, buddy. That's a big deal. And, again, like having that concrete, living example, living mantra for our children, I think will really help them, early on, develop habits early on that you become much more successful at maintaining those. And so I think, it's a great opportunity. And I imagine that through this conversation, I will be doing the same. So this is wonderful stuff for us, just within our families. I did want to share too, the benefit again of the idea of having something on your wall to return to and stuff. And this is a difficult thing because I just recently experienced a failure in parenting that I probably have been doing for quite some time, not even parenting, but just relationship. So, we live in an apartment complex, and I have a fitness center downstairs from me. That's not too far away. And, my son is 6 years old, and I don't want to leave him in my apartment and go work out without something, like to keep an eye on him, basically. And he sleeps through the night most of the time. So that's awesome. That gives me, a little bit of opportunity to kind of do, stuff around the house when he goes to sleep and get some things accomplished. But I'm a person who would like to have a habit of working out. And it takes me probably about 20 seconds to get, 20 to 30 seconds to get to my apartment from the fitness center. But I'm not going to go there without some sort of assurance that, he's going to be okay. So I got a security camera that I put in the room. So when it senses movement, it dings my phone, and then I can check the camera feed immediately. And that's awesome. I would like to implement that a little bit more. I haven't been doing such a great job yet of getting down to the fitness center when my kiddo's here, but I'm working on that part. But the unintended benefit that I received was through a very painful process, and that was one night we were having some challenge, and it was really difficult, and he was yelling and he was very upset, and I told him that in order to be safe, I think he should be in his room so he can be safe for himself and safe from the dogs and everybody else. And he, protested and he went limp in his body. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to carry you to the bedroom. And carried him in there crying and screaming and stuff. And it was tough. But I told him, I said, you need to stay in here, until you're safe. And he kept saying no, kept kind of throwing the hook out there and reeling me back into talking to him about it and arguing with him about it. And at some point in there, I lost my patience. And it wasn't clear to me what that looked like until later. So later, I actually looked at the history of recordings on that video, and I saw myself kind of standing over him. My movements were sharper and quicker. And you could tell that I was talking down to him. I was putting him in his place, if you want to say it. And that was an awful thing to witness. But in some ways, it was a benefit because I've never seen myself outside of my body like that before. And it just kind of it flipped a switch. And I said, I've got to do better. I've got to be better by this. And I guess the long story short is that when you have something on the wall like your family mantra and stuff, I would love to have my son be able to really learn and understand that to the point where he can define this is what this family's about and call me out in moments where I'm not living up to that in a good way, not like, Dad, you're an idiot or anything like that, but in a way that's showing love to me, because I think that without that, we have so much more, lack of consistency in our day to day. Not to say that that's, it's the cure for that, but I do think that at least kind of helps us keep each other accountable and helps us live up to each other's best expectations and love for each other.
Well, yeah, I think that this exercise really, what it is and what it does is it turns a mirror on ourselves, right? And that's not always easy to do. Sometimes when you catch a glimpse of your reflection, or you see yourself on a camera, maybe acting outside of your integrity, or something, or you see that playback of something. I said that, I did. God, I did that. Sometimes that can be jarring, and we get really defensive with that, right? No one likes to be told what you did wrong, or how you're an asshole, right? But if we can do that in a humble way, look at the growth that happens. If you can look at that camera and see yourself getting a little demonstrative there, and instead of saying, what an asshole, you can look at it and say, God, I didn't realize I was doing that. How can I fix this? How can I correct it? I think that that's what this exercise does. When you operate outside of that standard, you have that mantra to look at and go, that's not the guy in the mirror. This is the guy in the mirror. I created this mirror, I built this mirror. This is who I say I want to be. And this guy is not operating within that. So, you can take that mantra and turn it on yourself to really, to look at yourself in a non-judgmental way, right? In a way that you can say that I've designed this. This is who I said I wanted to be. So there's no judgment here. It happens, but this isn't who you want to be. Just gently nudge yourself back in the right direction. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and that's not always easy. And kind of telling a quick story, kind of based on what you're talking about. I had that kind of reflection moment too with our oldest, in the sense that she kind of pointed out something that she was feeling that my wife and I kind of had missed and kind of overlooked, and it was kind of a powerful of, wow, I can't believe she said that. And that kind of hurts, but also it was kind of humbling, and it was an incident where we kind of had our daughter, our oldest was upset with her younger sister because she wasn't, saying goodnight to her. She wasn't showing her affection before bedtime. She was kind of withholding that love, that show of affection. And Naomi was kind of coming down. Why is she being mean to me? I need her to say goodnight. And we talked and said, well, why is that important to you? And what's going on there with that? And we were also kind of talking, I think that your little sister is, not getting a lot of attention right now. It was kind of in a season of our life where we weren't able to be as present with the kids. We were dealing with some health problems and some scares, and the attention and the presence wasn't there as much as we would like. And the kids had kind of started to notice this, right? Our little angel started acting like a little devil, and our troublemakers started acting like the perfect angel, and being a first time listener. And my wife and I were kind of sitting there scratching our heads trying to pick it apart, and why is this happening, what's going on with them, and do they kind of know what's going on, and feel this energy and are picking it up, and as we were talking to our oldest, saying little sister's just not getting the attention that she needs right now, and I think maybe that's why she's being a little mean or maybe acting up. And our oldest turned and said, I think I get a lot of attention for acting bad, and I'm in trouble a lot. I get a lot of attention for being in trouble a lot. And I think that Aubrey sees that. So now she's acting bad to get attention. And man, that just kind of stings to hear, right? Like, she's telling me like she feels like she's in trouble a lot and she's getting reprimanded, and that's the kind of attention she gets. So as a dad, as a stepdad, oh man, that's not the kind of love that I want to show. It makes me feel bad. But how awesome that the 7-year-old can articulate this, right? And that she can see this dynamic that's playing out in our household. And my wife and I in our 30s are looking at it and can't figure out what's going on, So it was just a kind of humbling moment that we talk about, that we're just talking about here, of pausing to kind of look in the mirror and to have that light shone back at us. And how important that confidence piece is, instead of the reprimanding piece, especially with kids with ADHD, right? That piece that we're talking about of pointing out the clouds and giving them praise for that, for the little things, is just so important, because look how a little 7-year-old brain can spiral into this, I'm always in trouble. And that's the kind of attention that, mom and stepdad give to me. So.
Yeah, man, that's huge. And yeah, our kids are so dang smart and observant and stuff. And, I have maybe a similar story and just some thoughts too, with a kid with ADHD is, a lot of times what they crave is our attention, kids in general. But, the interesting thing about the ADHD brain, it tends to be that, if this is how I'm going to receive attention from my parent, well, then I'm getting attention, even if it's, that I'm acting out and they're getting upset. Well, I still got their attention. So I'm still getting what I want, which is, the attention that the focus that is on me. This is what I'm craving. So, that's the one thing that I've been kind of learning about with my son, is sometimes if it's just a matter of, getting my attention through something that's, poor behavior, hey, he still succeeded in some ways. So it's all that more important that we really pay attention to the little things too, because they're picking up on that. Well, if I can do this and this gets the attention from my parents, then therefore I should continue that, because this other thing where I'm keeping quiet and doing well in my homework, they're not praising me for that. I'm not getting attention from them. So I need to act out so I can get their attention again, because this is how I get connection, is through this attention. So that's kind of a really important one that I've been learning about my son, is that, there are times where I do have things going on and I haven't, I have the intent to clean up while he's nearby. But at some point when that amount of time becomes too great for him to experience his dad being somewhere else, he's going to do something to get my attention. Though again, back to the Mario, one thing that he's been doing quite a bit is he's making a running commentary with everything in the game. And as I leave the room, he's getting louder and louder. And then, of course, here I am, I don't do it often, but I will say that, he gets louder. And then I say, okay, Cohen, you can tell me in a quieter voice. But then again, what I'm doing is I'm reacting to something. And, he's looking at that as, me in some ways telling him that's not okay. But guess what? It worked. He got my attention. So yeah, it's an ongoing learning experience, and our kids are so in tune with things. And we were at the museum, children's museum recently, and I'm not everybody's parent there. I'm my son's parent, and he's doing something. He's kind of like hoarding all the stuff, all the toys. And I said, well, buddy, I think the other kids want to play with stuff too. And there was this one other boy who was also doing this hoarding technique and taking all the toys from everybody. And Cohen just says to me, says, well, you don't tell him to. And I was like, yeah, you got a valid point, man. I don't tell him that. And it sucked because it's true. Obviously he's my kid. So I can't just like go to this other kid and say, hey dude, stop it. Can't do that. But I have to be in tune with my son and how he's going to receive this stuff. If he's getting my attention in that way more often than not, yeah, he's getting the connection, he's getting the attention, but that's not going to serve him well. He's a brilliant kid, and I can give him so much by just simply paying attention to all the little things too, and saying, that's awesome, dude. We don't want to coddle our kids to death or anything, but we do want to let them know that we're there and give them the presence that they deserve. And again, that goes back to my core value.
Well, I just think that it's really important to be mindful of the praise that we're giving, right? Because that the repercussions, the negative talk that we give, the reprimanding, that almost comes instinctually, right? It's like, don't do that thing, drop that thing, don't touch that. It's just, it happens. It's a reaction. Which is why we have to be more intentional about the praise, about the positivity, because that isn't instinctual. That doesn't just come off the cuff of good job, buddy, to every little thing. You have to be focused and intentional about that, and keep it in the forefront of your mind to do more often, so that we're matching at least the negativity with the positivity with just as much. So it takes a little bit of finesse and some effort. It's not just going to happen. So, but man, I think we really covered some good stuff here, and really kind of talked about some intentionality and some kind of methods revolving around that, about how we can do it for ourselves and our family and our kids. I'm kind of excited to get off of this call and start having some conversations about how I can create a power statement for our kiddos. So I'm going to just kind of start asking some questions and throwing some words out there and seeing what they resonate, and seeing if they have any interest in this at all. It may take some finesse. I don't know if the ADHD brain of a 7-year-old will be down with this exercise, but I would definitely love to get back here next week on the next episode and maybe talk about how it went for both of us, and maybe even get our kids on an episode here and maybe ask us some questions too.
Yeah, man, that sounds awesome. And I'd love to hear from anybody out there who has gone through maybe a similar experience in exercise with their kid, and what they've learned and what they have for advice for others. It's always good to hear, some of that feedback. And I'm not perfect, so I definitely need I definitely need plenty of help along the way. And I just wanted to say one more thing that I think is really important. Again, that this the idea of reactivity and proactivity. I had heard, parenting styles are different from, one person to the next, and how you implement discipline can look different as well. But I remember having that conversation with somebody about, like corporal punishment, essentially. And they said, well, you're not trying to hurt your kid. You're not trying to, abuse them physically. And they gave the example of, like, let's say that kid is going to just cross the street without looking first. So you smack them to get their attention. Like, this is an effort to get them out of that, that mindset, or, the lack of focus and stuff. And I guess what I would say is, how does it look to be proactive about it? We can talk about, this is what it looks like to approach the street. We look both ways and stuff. And then in addition to that, once they do that, we praise them. We give them that, reassurance, like, you're doing a great job. You are learning, you're putting this into practice, the things that you've been taught. And that's awesome. So we don't go to the point where this has happened and now I'm responding to it. We give our children the gift of knowledge and understanding and forethought, and then we praise them for that. So that's my 2 cents on the idea of reactivity and proactivity for this episode.
Great stuff, JJ. Great way to end, and there's some valuable stuff in there. So, guys, thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you for tuning in. We hope that you continue this journey along with us. And until next time, this is the ADH Dads. I'm CJ.
I'm JJ.
Thanks, guys. Take care.